Nintendo had decided to go with the Nintendo Treehouse again, simply because they really didn't have that much to show off this year. They didn't have the NX. They were very open of saying that the NX wasn't going to be here this year, even before the conference started. Even they said, yeah, we're going to be spending a lot of time concentrating on Zelda, which they did. The only other games they talked about with the main section of that sort of scheduled part of the conference was, that scheduled part of the E3 schedule was Pokemon Sun and Moon. Unlike last year, this main part of the conference schedule wasn't a pre-recorded video. Last year it was a pre-recorded video of famously the Muppets, the Muppet Miyamoto, Muppet Reggie, and Muppet Iwata. This time it was just live video, straight from the Nintendo Treehouse floor. They definitely went for a much more relaxed, a much more slow-paced, in-depth conversation with the developers of the games, with the directors of the game, rather than, oh look, ooh, new game, ooh, flashy, 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 flashy. They weren't going to do the same thing that Microsoft and Sony did. For this one, it was a lot more slow-paced. It was a lot more, not talk showy-ish, but much more going into in-depth discussion about, we're doing this with that, and these are the reasons behind it. So it was very nice. It was a fascinating insight into the development into the development of the games. I was very fascinated. Not entirely sure how fascinated the consumer base at large was, but yeah, I thought it was interesting. As an introduction to the main section, they went into Zelda and showed a full trailer for the new Zelda game and revealed the title. The title is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. It's probably the least Zelda-like Zelda there's been in quite a while. It's a lot more realistic design, so there's a lot more realistic proportions. It's not sort of the Toon style, or the very old school sort of DS Game Boy style that they have. It's the very realistic style, very reminiscent of things like Skyward Sword, which is one that always kept on coming out. Also, as part of the realistic design, the whole mechanics of cutting things down, or cutting down grass and finding rupees or hearts or whatever, or the enemies dropping hearts and things like that, that's gone. It's, you find food. It's an adventure game. You find lots of food. It's like trees everywhere that drops apples, or you can see these encampments where the enemies were. You can get a big steak, and you eat and you gain food. It's food as healing aspect to it. On top of that, they have the very old school style, Dark Souls style of combat. Very slow, of shield and sword and stand your ground, which is quite reminiscent of the N64 Zeldas. I think it has targeting. I think it has lock-on. It doesn't have the big reticule thing that come up. They went for a very minimalist HUD by the looks of it, and so there's not a lot of things flying around and stuff going on. It's a very minimalist HUD. This is part of the reason why the Dark Souls comparison came up quite a lot, because it's a very minimalist HUD where you have health in the corner and sort of weapons, and you can switch some weapons on the fly through a quick switch menu. You can throw things, throw weapons, all sort of stuff. There's now weapon degradation as well. So eventually, if you use a weapon too much, it breaks. So I'm assuming there's going to be a way to repair it, or a way to stop that, or things like the Master Sword just won't have degradation because it's like plot centric or something like that. It's sort of a conglomeration of some aspects of other Zelda games, but also some new aspects to other. Like the food as health is pretty much a new thing to the Zelda franchise. The more realistic style hasn't been seen since stuff like stuff like Skyward Sword, the much more, I wouldn't say precision, but much more slow-paced, more considered combat, sort of like the 64 Zeldas, like Oracle of Time. It's got a very minimalist HUD, which is sort of resembles that sort of style as well. It's very modern. One thing that a couple of people on the Twitter were complaining about during the gameplay stuff was the frame rate. And everyone's going, oh, but look at the frame rate is crap. I didn't really care. They went for a very, very specific way of design, partly as a way to get around the limitations of the console, but the the NX is coming out, so everyone going, oh, but look at the frame rate. It's like, no, that's probably because it's running off the Wii or a very prototyped version of the NX. The graphical style that they're going through with the actual artistic design is very impressive. Like I said, it's got a very Skyward Sword core to it, and it has that sort of pastel colour, very partly cartoonish but realistic design to it, and it looks amazing. It really is one of the Zelda games that grasps the idea of just going away on an adventure. Then they spent basically an hour talking about Pokemon. They had the new director, which apparently, from some of the more Pokemon aficionados that were talking on Twitter, were saying that the director could, he's one of the ones that could make the game slightly easier than ones previous, as he has like a history of doing that with the Pokemon franchise. Entirely taking their word on it. There's a fair lot of new design to it. There's only so much of the Pokemon that you can really change game on game more than anything else. With a new Pokemon game, there always comes a new crop of Pokemon. There's a new crop of Pokemon. There are a new crop of starting Pokemon. It is a fire type, water type, and grass type, as per usual. The design of the game is a lot more realistic. It looks very anime, but a lot more realistic style anime. So to me, it just looks a lot more like the TV show, rather than sort of this almost chibi version that they have in the games, because now I think it's come quite the ways, and I think the Sun and Moon games are going to be a big boost in the design of the game, because there are a lot of added little design things. Like there was one little design thing that they had where when you're coming close to a trainer, little shadow bars would come from the top and bottom, like you're being watched. As soon as they come down, it's like someone's going, "Ooh, I see you." And then as you get close, it just goes, "Shing," and it cuts down. The white bar comes across, going, "You have my attention," and then it goes as a clear bar from you in the middle to where pointing to whoever you're fighting. Camera zooms up to them, and words. Battle begins. Another thing that they have is, during the Pokemon battles, the bottom screen is the whole menu systems where you got fight and bag and choose battle, choose what you use, do usual stuff, but it's all basically touch orientated now. But on the top screen is essentially a dynamic camera where it zooms around you and zooms around the Pokemon and your enemy Pokemon. One thing that the director was saying was that when you see your Pokemon on the field, you always see you very close by. They wanted to push that it is you as the trainer with your Pokemon rather than it's just your Pokemon on screen doing a little fight thing. They want to drive an attachment between your Pokemon and you. Like I said, they can't really do that much to change the Pokemon games that greatly. It still is turn-based, still is the whole go get 'em, go catch 'em style to it, although by now it's like 600 Pokemon, good fucking luck. But yeah, generally it looks very good, looks fine. It is another Pokemon game. The Pokemon games are always very well done. Judging by the aficionados that I have been seeing on the Twitter and the onlines, they are, to use a phrase, optimistically cautious. A game that is very much boosting the artistic design of the game and changing very little else. And the gameplay stuff that does change is probably in some sense of minimalization or some sort of simplification. And then they went on back to Zelda, and all the stuff that they said about Zelda is probably probably all I said about Zelda. Nintendo didn't have that much to show off this year. They didn't really have that much to lose either. I think they're waiting for the release of the NX. It was a bit disappointing, but sadly I didn't expect much else. So to come up with a phrase to sum up this conference, a sentence to come up with the conference is Nintendo biding their time for the future.